All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. It's either going to be below the video if you're on a mobile device. If you're on a laptop, desktop computer, something like that, it's going to be to the right of the video. So I always start with questions that were asked up to an hour before. So let's scroll down here and see who we're starting with today. Bear with me here. We got some storms rolling through, so I apologize if we get a little bit of racket, but not much we can do here in Florida. Adjust this a little bit. So let's see here. Who are we starting with? We're going to be starting with, looks like it'd be Tim F. So we'll start here with Tim F. And then we'll keep on moving forward. The reason why I do that is I just want to start with people who are more than likely here waiting to get their question answered. If someone asks their question on Sunday or something like that, odds are they're not here, waiting to get their question answered. So just kind of want to give a little bit of, preferential treatment to the people waiting to see their question get answered. So we'll start with Tim F. Tim F says, just wanted to clarify, the golf swing is essentially the same for all irons and woods. Ball position differs, correct? Yeah, for the most part, it's just where you are striking the golf ball. The mechanics of everything is going to be very, very closely similar. Our spine angles, they can be a little bit more vertical if we're hitting wedges because we're hitting more down into the golf ball, and we can be a little bit more angled away with a driver because we're hitting more up into the golf ball. But the ball position helps us with that. Our shoulder turn, typically it's going to be about the same between your driver and your irons, but I personally have a little bit of a bigger shoulder turn with my driver because I swing a little bit more aggressively, but it doesn't have to be that way. Some people just want to be consistent throughout. Some people like to be a little bit, for myself, I like to swing a little bit shorter with the irons and a little bit longer and aggressively with the driver. That's just my personal preference. Lag, as far as lag is concerned, lag usually differs, but it's not something that you actively have to try to do. It's just by virtue of the length of the club being longer. There's more leverage there, which makes there's more momentum there, and that makes the lag a little bit more. So that's typically why you see a little bit more lag with the driver versus the other clubs, because there's more momentum going the other direction. So just to explain that, because this club is longer, when I bring it up to the top, it's got more momentum going that way. It's got more momentum going that way. So when I switch directions, it's able to create a sharper angle. Whereas if I have a shorter club, a wedge, which I thought I had a wedge in here, but I don't know where it went. But anyway, a wedge would be it's about a foot shorter than this club. So there's just not going to be as much lag there typically because of that. But it's not something you have to try to work on getting more lag with your driver and less lag with your irons. It's just something that happens. Compression line, same kind of thing as the spine angles. We can be a little bit more angled away. We still want everything lined up, but we can be a little bit more angled away with a driver versus an iron. And a wedge, we can be more vertical depending on the kind of shot that you're trying to hit. But in general, you're going to be pretty slightly angled away with everything, maybe a little bit more with the driver. And then the straight line release, same kind of thing. It's going to be about the same with all the clubs. It's just you may not have as much forward shaft lean with your driver because of the ball position, right? Versus an iron. So here's iron, off the turf, and then here's driver. My hands are basically in the same place, right? But the forward shaft lean is different because of the ball position. So that's basically, the mechanics and everything is essentially the same. The other thing to keep in mind is that we may need to feel like we're doing different things because of where the ball is, right, and how we're hitting the golf ball. So with an iron, we're hitting down and through the ball, right, and with a driver, we're hitting it's in the air, and we're even hitting a little up through it. And the other thing about that is that our path, if we're thinking about, you imagine I have a hula hoop around my body here, and it's kind of on an incline. That hula hoop, that bottom of that hula hoop is basically, a little bit forward of my center, right? So if I'm hitting an iron, my club is working out to the right a little bit. All things equal, my club would be working out to the right a little bit. And then if I was hitting a driver, because it's more on the upswing, my hula hoop may be moving to the left. So for an iron, I may not need to feel like I need to change, or for a driver, I may need to feel like my hula hoop, my path is a little bit more into out to compensate for that. But other than that, it's really, the mechanics of everything is mostly the same. All right, so Edward C here, angle this up a little bit so I can read it a little bit better. Edward C says, please could you give a bit of explanation on how hitting it low and high on the face affects the strike trajectory distance? I tend to hit my driver consistently high on the face, and it sometimes flies high, but not very far. Thanks. So let's talk about that a little bit. I was hoping I had, there we go. So basically, what happens if you strike the ball higher on the face? Now, one thing to keep in mind is with a driver, your driver faces are domed, right? 3-wood faces are a little bit domed. Hybrid faces are typically a little bit domed. And what that means is that it's in both directions, both from it's bulged, right? So if you think about in a greater sense, the face is kind of going like this, and also across the face horizontally, it's the same thing. So vertically and horizontally, this face it is domed. So if you imagine, for example, the center of the face, you assume that part of the face is square, and it's the loft of it is whatever is on your driver. That's what it should be, somewhere in that area. So this is a 9-degree driver. The loft on this driver at the dead center of the face should be 9 degrees, and it should be dead square, right? Well, if I go out toward the toe, that face is a little bit more open, right? And if I go toward the heel, that face is a little bit more closed. And this is to account for gear effect, which we'll talk about in a second. Now, as I go higher on the face, there's going to be more loft. So if this is a 9-degree driver, up on the top here, it's going to be about 12 degrees. And this being a 9-degree driver here on the bottom, it's going to be about 6 degrees. So that in and of itself is going to add to the loft of what's going on there. Now, the other thing that adds to that is when you hit it on top here, high on the face, what happens is the face will actually twist. It will twist up. If you ever watch shots in slow motion, if you can ever see some super slow motion, what can happen is the face, you'll see the face will kind of twist up, and that also adds loft. But what it also does is it reduces the amount of spin. So that can be helpful, reducing the amount of spin. But if you go too high on the face, you're going to get too much loft, and you're going to get too much twisting of the face, which isn't going to transfer a lot of energy to the ball. So my guess is that you're hitting it way too high on the face. When we say try to hit the ball a little bit higher on the face, we're talking like a 1/4 inch higher on the face. So if that is, you can kind of see on this driver, it's got this X marks the spot on there. So if we go kind of toward the top, if the center, this would be a dead center strike right in the middle of the face. A 1/4 inch higher than that would be kind of toward the top of the face. That's right there. So if you look at that from that angle, that's not real high on the face. If you're getting really high drives that aren't going anywhere, most likely your strikes are up here. They're near kind of the crown of the club. So what I would try to do is I would try to top the golf ball. That's what I'd be trying to do. I'd be trying to top every single shot. Now, it doesn't mean you're likely not going to top it. What will likely happen is you're going to get that strike more in the center of the club face. If you actually do top it, that's great. That means that you've made an adjustment. You've been able to get out of your comfort zone and make change, because it's difficult to do. It's not easy to just top it, because the odds are, if you're hitting it high on the face and I tell you to try to top it, you may get it a little bit lower on the face, but it's probably still going to be higher on the face. It takes some getting out of your comfort zone to really kind of let yourself go, to really get it down there. You're probably going to need to feel like you're completely missing it to actually top it. But hey, if you do, everybody's wired a little bit differently, so you may actually get to where you do top it. So that's what I would try to do first. Now, typically, I haven't seen your swing. I think it was Edward that asked the question. I haven't seen your swing, Edward, but typically when people are hitting it high on the face, it's typically because of an over-the-top kind of swing. So what happens is when you swing over the top, when your path is kind of working out to in, kind of like this, the low point of your swing moves forward, moves toward the target. And by that, I mean the low point is where this club comes down, reaches its lowest point, and then works back up. So typically with a driver, we want that club to be working up into the golf ball a little bit, or even be level with the golf ball. But if you're coming over the top, right, that low point is happening right at the golf ball. It's happening, right when you're getting to it. So essentially that's going to lead to high on the face strike. So I look at your swing on video and see if you are coming over the top steep, and that's what's causing that pop-up kind of swing. So to alleviate that, what I would recommend is the move course. The move course is going to get you to where you're shallowing out the club, because a lot of times people come over the top because they're going right, and then they come over the top more and they go right more. They start pulling it or popping it up and stuff like that. So it's kind of a game of opposites a little bit. You actually want to swing more to the right, not to hit it to the right. So what we have to do with that is we also have to get the face more closed to make that happen. So that's what the move is. The move is getting you to shallow out this club so you can swing more into out. But if you don't close the face when you do that, or get the face more closed, you're just going to hit a block slice, and it's going to go way, way right. So we have to also twist that face down, get that face squared up at contact so that we're coming in with a square club face in from the inside. So that will likely help with the pop-ups working through the move course. But I look at your swing, see what's going on there. You may already be doing this, and maybe you're sliding too forward, or maybe you're just that's just where your club's bottoming out at, and it's not because you're coming over the top. So you got to look at your swing and see what's going on to make sure that's what you need to work on. All right, so continue to move forward here. So David M says, Q, the dread shank has appeared on short pitch shots. Help. Yeah, so man, I thought I had a wedge in here. Let me go grab a wedge real quick. I don't know what I did with that. I will be right back with a wedge. All right. Sorry for the delay. For some reason, I brought it out into my garage. So most of the time when I see people struggle with shanks, with chipping or pitching and stuff like that, it's because they're standing way too close to the ball. It's part of it. So I don't know what I've never struggled with this myself as far as this issue, but I see it all the time. People with these short shots, they really like to get on top of the ball and really crowd the golf ball. And when you do that, you just don't have any space. If your hips move toward the golf ball at all, you're bringing that hosel into play. So that's what I would look at first. Look at what's going on there. Give yourself a little bit of space here. You should have about a fist between your hands and your legs here. That's what you should have, about like that. And that's going to give you plenty of space to allow this club to work through. It's probably going to feel like you're standing really far away from it, but that's going to be a pretty good amount of space for most people. If you're like this, it's just going to be difficult to be able to, basically if you move your hips toward it all, you're going to be bringing that hosel into play. So that's the other thing. It leads to the next point. Is typically when I see people are pitching and chipping, they're losing space for their hands to move through, which moves the hosel through. So I would try to feel like you're staying in your lead heel, because for a pitch shot, we don't need like a big weight transfer. We can keep most of our weight on our lead foot. So I try to feel like, give yourself space. Try to feel like your weight, your pressure is more in your lead heel, more back here. And that will allow you to kind of keep that space there. You're not taking away this space. most of the time when I see people hitting shanks with the pitch shots, they're standing too close to it, and then they kind of go like this. They kind of move their hips toward the ball, and that just takes away all your space. So give yourself space, give yourself a little bit more space. Keep your weight in your lead heel, and then pitch it just like so. Those are the two biggest pieces. One other piece might be that you're just swinging it too much from the inside. So you might be bringing it in like this and just bringing that club way too much from the inside. When you do that, you're bringing that hosel into play because that hosel is just working right toward the golf ball. So just take a look at, just set up a video, have a buddy video camera, you or something like that, real quick, just to see, because you may feel like you're standing far away from it, but you may look on video and feel it's not real, or you may feel like you're keeping you're keeping your hips back and you're not moving your hips toward the ball, but sure enough, the video may show that you are. And you may feel like you're swinging on plane, but in reality, you're swinging more like out here like this, and that may be what the video shows. So just have a buddy take a look and take a video of you real quick. Use an app like V1 Golf or something like that, or you can just look at it on whatever your camera app is, and that will give you a good idea of what's going on there and what you need to change. So if you are someone who's swinging too much from the inside, what I try to feel like is I would almost feel like you're bringing the club straight back and straight through. That's not the reality, right? You're not actually going to be bringing the club straight back and down steep, but it's kind of the fault, feel, real approach. The fault is that you're doing this. The feel is that you want to be doing this. The reality is hopefully that you're bringing it back on plane and back down on plane, and you're going to get everything nice and zeroed out and get rid of those shanks. So now, if none of those pieces are working, or if you look on video and you're just everything looks good, your spacing looks good, your path isn't bad, you're not moving your hips toward the golf ball, then I would just try to hit the ball off the toe. Every single shot, hit it off the toe. And you may even want to do that as you're working through these pieces. So what that will do is that will adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. If you're hitting it in the heel and you're trying to hit in the center of the face, if you adjust your feel to hitting on the toe, more than likely the strikes will be more in the center of the face. And keep doing that until you actually start hitting it off the toe consistently. And then at that point, you can kind of ease off of it. So I would look at those pieces and see if any of those are going on. All right. So Pierce D says, hey Q, was on track last week and noticed when I tilt my spine, I have an 18-degree launch angle with my driver, was averaging 260 carry with inconsistent contact. Oh, sorry, my wife just got home, so let me let the dog out real quick. All right. So was averaging 260 carry with inconsistent contact. I turned my head down to 9.5 degrees from 10.5 instead of more neutral with my spine angle while remembering everything else, the 20-minute distance fix. My average drive is now 300. 325 is regular occurrence. Can you explain? Feel is not real is what I'm saying. Like you may feel like you're actually more tilted and things like that, but what the reality is that when you're coming into contact, something is different, right? Maybe you're hitting the ball more in the center of the face. Maybe you picked up speed. It's hard for me to say without seeing your swing, but what you can do is if you have video from your swing from before and your video now where you're hitting the ball further, compare them and see what the difference is. See what the difference is, particularly at impact, because I can be doing all kinds of crazy things at address. Like I can be set up like this, right, at address, and then go up to the top and get into a great impact position. We want you to get into an address position that's like this, more angled away, and then be angled away at the top and more angled away at impact, because it's easier to get into that impact position. That's what matters the most in the golf swing is the impact position. So as long as you're getting in that impact position and the dynamics of how you're getting there are good, you're going to hit good golf shots. So for one reason or another, you're getting into a good impact position. It's impossible for me to know without seeing exactly what's going on, but that's what I would do is I would kind of look at maybe your impact position, and your impact positions could look the exact same, and it could just be more speed. That could be what's going on. It could be that you now 1 degree difference in your and your driver isn't going to make that much of a difference. Not like a 440 to 65 yard difference. It's not going to make you go from 260 to 325. It might add 5-10 yards depending on what your club head speed is. It may make you lose 5-10 yards. A lot of times there's no difference at all. So, like I said, I wish I knew just off the top of my head, based on the information that you gave me, what the difference was. But it's really impossible for me to know without actually seeing, launch monitor numbers plus seeing video and stuff like that. I wish I was that good, but I'm just not that good. All right. So David F says, talk about wedges for 50 to 100 yards, particularly weight shift, if any. So basically, this is one of the toughest things in golf, I think. Dialing in wedges. I really think it is. I was actually in a really tough spot with my wedges fairly recently, where I just really lost feel for I was overshooting everything, hitting everything way too far. I was hitting my wedges 10-15 yards longer than what I had been before. And you can imagine that's frustrating. You hit your great drive, you're in a great position you got a scoring club in your hand, great position to make birdie, and then you hit it over the green or you leave yourself a super long putt. It's like you would have been better off, being 150 yards out and just taking a full swing because you have better distance control with that club. So that's basically, what it comes down to is being able to dial those in pretty good. So weight shift, it really depends on your club head speed. Is 100 yards a full swing? If it is, if 100 yards is a full swing for you with a particular club, then it would be like a normal weight shift swing. But if it's not a full swing shot, you can keep your weight more forward. You don't really need to transfer a lot of weight, because that's really the whole point of transferring your weight, is so you can load up, get a big turn, and then get that weight shift to the lead side and get some good power. That's what we want to do on full swing shots, right? We want to do that with our driver. We want to do that with our irons. They're full swings. But these gauged wedge shots that aren't full swing shots, we can keep our weight more forward because we don't need to make that powerful weight transfer. We don't need to get a full turn. It's not necessary. So we can keep our weight more forward. You can be more forward at address, and you can kind of try to keep it there. So that way it's easier to get that ball first contact. There's no weight transfer to make that happen. So as far as dialing those shots in, what I'd recommend doing, what I've been doing, is I go out with my PRGR. I go out to the range and I set it up, and I'm just trying to hit different distances with my PRGR. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, I think, okay, this is going to be an 85-yard shot. And then I pick my target out there, and I hit it, and I see what my PRGR says, and I'm trying to dial that in. If you don't have a PRGR, you don't have to have one. Hopefully your range has some sort of, I know our range here, they've got little greens around. Hopefully they have little flags around where you can see, how far things are. So a lot of times I'll take my rangefinder out, and because the PRGR isn't perfect, it's gonna give you some funny numbers every now and then, as does any launch monitor, even the most expensive ones. But I like to get the rangefinder out, find what that flag is. Hopefully you have a few flags out there that are less than 100 yards. Unfortunately, ours doesn't. They just have like one that's out there that's 80, but there's some mounds around it. So what I like to do is I like to laser the tops of the mounds, right? Laser those spots. And then what I do is I'll alternate hitting shots to all those different shots. And I'm just trying to get a feel for what that is, right? So I'm just trying to get a feel. Okay, what does an 80-yard shot feel like? So I'll kind of get the feel for what that is, what an 80-yard shot feels like, and then I'll try to execute that, and I'll see what happens after that. And you do that for a while, and you're going to develop a good feel. Another way that you can kind of do it is using the clock system, which we have in our wedge system, and that's figuring out how far your wedges go for a 7:30 swing, and a 9 o'clock swing, and basically a full swing, like your 10:30 swing. You can kind of figure out what all those distances are, and I like to figure out what those are for all my wedges. depending on how many wedges you carry, and then also figure out what it is if you choke up on the club 1 inch, or if you choke up on the club all the way down to the metal. Basically, for me, I have a 1 inch choke up, which basically, gives me. I still have a little bit left on the end here when I do that. So if you can see, that's a 1 inch choked up shot. That's going to take a little bit of distance off. For me, it takes roughly about 10 yards of distance off of a swing. Around there. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but that's around what it does for me. Now, if I choke all the way down to here, that should take a little bit more off. So that's, kind of knowing, okay, if I have a 60-yard shot and I know, okay, that is a 9 o'clock swing with a choked up 1 inch on my 56 degree, I know that's this swing right here. If I have a 65-yard shot, for example, I know I just need to do a little bit more than a 9 o'clock swing to hit this shot. Or maybe I have a 50-yard shot, and I know that's it's a choked up 56 degree. That's a 9 o'clock swing. I know if I have a 50-yard shot, I know I just need to take a little bit off of that, right? I need to maybe go about right here to hit the 60-yard shot. So or the 50-yard shot. So try to get a feel for what those swings feel like, and the clubs that you're using, and whether you're choking up or not, how you're setting up, so on and so forth. Typically, for me, if it's a 100 yards or under, I'm typically setting up. That's a 54 degree for me. I'm setting up with my body a little bit more open. My feet are a little bit, or not really close together, but more like about like this much. So if I was to hit a 100-yard shot, it'd be a 54 degree. My body is a little bit open. My feet are close together. I keep my weight forward, and I just kind of try to drive the ball in there. And it's a little bit less all the way down and through. A 50-yard shot would probably look, more like this. This would be like a 50-yard shot, right? And then this would be more like a 100-yard shot. I have a good feel for everything in between there. Now, I didn't before. A month ago, I didn't, but I've been working on it a little bit the last few weeks, and it's definitely gotten better. So, the more you can go out there and randomly hit different shots. One thing you can do is you can take a deck of cards out to the course with you. Take all the face cards out. Just have like ace through 10, or depending on what range of shots you want to work on. Maybe you're just wanting to work from 30 to 100-yard shots. Just have the 3 through 10 in there, and then just randomly draw a card, right? And let's say I drew a 5. That's a 50-yard shot, right? And then I drew a 9 on the next one. I got to hit 90 yards. Shuffle the cards, hit your 90-yard shot, and just go through the whole deck. Tell you what, if you do that, and you get that kind of dialed in, get a good feel, you're getting feedback, how far you're hitting these shots. If you have something out there that's telling you, hey, you have a flag out there that's 80 yards, and you can clearly see, okay, that was about 10-yard shot. I was going for, or 10 yards short. I was going for a 70-yard shot. That's good. So, or let's say, you're going for the 80, you drew the 9, and there's the flag out there is 80 yards, and you hit it right at 80 yards, even though you're trying to hit it 90. You know that, okay, I need to hit it. I need to feel like I'm hitting it a little bit harder. So maybe on the next one, you draw the 5, so that's your 50-yard shot. Maybe you feel like you're giving it actually 55 and see what kind of feel you get. So it's all about really adjusting your feel and dialing that in. It takes practice. It's a skill. It's not something that you're just going to go out to the course and you're going to have it nailed. It's a difficult part of the game. So it's definitely something that you got to practice. So Carl C says, a while ago, I started the 20-minute distance fix, but then realized I needed to correct some swing flaws. I've made noticeable improvements. Do you recommend holding off speed training a little longer until I'm more comfortable with my swing changes? It's really up to you. It really depends on what the swing changes are. You can try to implement them along with the speed training, but doing the speed training is not going to hurt what you're doing either. You can work on them separately as well. So that would probably be my best recommendation, is to work on them separately. Now, understand, when you're doing speed training, you are not ball striking training. You are not trying to necessarily hit the ball straight. So I wouldn't necessarily stop doing speed training I'd work on whatever that piece is that you're having trouble with separately, and then and do the speed training at the same time, because that way you can be doing both. And the speed training isn't a ton of time. If you only have time to do speed training and you have this issue with your swing, then sure, work on that issue with your swing. It really just depends on how much time you have to practice. But if you have plenty of time to practice, that you can work on both, working on them separately. As you're getting more comfortable with the change, you can kind of try to put them together a little bit too. But it's really, it's really up to you, and it really depends on what the swing change is too. So Gufron A says, what should be a club face position facing away from the target and backswing after you create lag? What should be club face position facing away from the target and backswing after you create the lag? Well, I mean, it's actually, it's really not that important, to be honest, because it only matters how the club face is at impact. So, you can look at the difference between, there's 2 top 10 players in the world. You can look at Dustin Johnson, who's like this at the top of the swing, and as he's coming down, he's got that club face really, really close as he's coming down. Or you can look at Webb Simpson, he's got this face like this. He's got the face really, really open, right? Both of them are excellent ball strikers because at impact, they get the club in the right position. And that's really what matters. So you need to be doing whatever it is up here that allows you to get into that position at impact. There's no right and wrong way as long as your impact face position is where it needs to be. That's really the most important thing. Now, what do I typically tell people? The square you can get it earlier in the swing, the better. That's typically what happens. That's what I would teach somebody. That's what's going to make you the most consistent. So as you're coming down, you're creating lag. I would try to have that face as square as possible. So that's going to come from a flat to slightly bowing wrist. That's what's going to allow you to square up that face, because that's how your club face is at impact, right? So you can see at impact, I have a slightly bowed wrist here. That's allowing me to have this face square at impact with some forward shaffling. I'd like to have this at this point in the swing when I'm getting my maximum amount of lag, right? So that way I don't have to do, if I'm like this at this point in the swing, I'm going to have to manipulate this somehow to the golf ball. Now, some players can do that really well, like a Webb Simpson. He's coming down like this and gets that club face really, plenty square at impact. But that may not work for you. That's typically not what I would recommend. But if you can get this position here, like we do in the move, that's what's going to help you the most, get that face square. So focus on what's going on at impact. If you're not getting in the position that you want at impact, then you may want to look up here. If you're leaving the face open at impact, you may want to look back here where you're getting lag and see where see if you're cupping the wrist a ton. And if you are, you may want to feel like you're doing the move here, that's twisting of the handle, that squaring of the face, getting these wrists, getting that wrist bowed to square the face. So if you look here, if I turn my wrist, see how the face turns? That's what's going to help you to get that face more square when you come down to contact. So Craig L says, straight line release drills have helped with my shaft lean and shoulder turn. My right hand feels very powerful when it rolls over from the impact position to my straight line release. Is that the proper feeling? Hey, if you're getting great results, then yeah. But one thing to keep in mind is that feeling is relative. So what you feel and what I feel might be completely different things. So, hey, if you look on video and you see you're coming into impact, you have forward shaft lean, everything's looking great. The hands, they're not, some players are going to roll over more than others. It's really, that's kind of what we're trying to get at with the Top Speed Golf system is that, the Top Speed Golf system, these are the 5 things that all the best players do. And these are the things that you really want to make sure that are in good shape, because that's going to fix 95% of your issues. All these things that I typically get questions on, like where's the club face pointing at this point in the swing? Should I be rolling my hands over? Should I be, doing this, doing that? Where should my weight be at this very second in the swing? These kinds of things. These are all like the details that you will get into that can be or not going to be the same for every player. Somebody's going to be a little bit different. Now there's maybe ranges, but everybody's going to be a little bit different in that sense. So open, closed face at the top of the swing. Look at the tour. There's you're going to see everything from here to there. Like most of it's going to be somewhere in this area, but some of the best players in the world are big time outliers with their wrist angles, and obviously it works really well for them, right? So that's what you have to look at. What is the most important thing? And then the other thing is, I get questions all the time: is should I be feeling this, feeling that? Unfortunately, there's no great answer to these questions because feeling is completely relative. What you feel, what I feel. I wish I could tell you, yeah, that's exactly the right feeling. But if I look at your swing and we see something that's not matching the Top Speed Golf system, then you may need to feel something else to get the desired result that you want. That's a lot of what golf is. Golf is, if you can be good at adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want, you can be good at golf. If you're good at changing the way that you feel about things, if you're able to get out of your comfort zone, because that's really what it takes to get out of your comfort zone, to feel things that are uncomfortable if you're wanting to improve them. If you're doing something that's wrong and that feels comfortable and the right thing feels very uncomfortable, then it's going to be difficult to change that. And the better you are at getting out of your comfort zone, the better off you're going to be. So I would, typically when you look at tour players, yes, there is going to be some rolling of the hands through impact, but there's some players like a Jordan Spieth, like a Brooks Koepka, that they don't roll their hands very much. Basically, they get right here and the face is like that. The trail hand kind of stays under as they're coming through. But if you look at someone like Rory McIlroy and Adam Scott, the hand kind of rolls over like that. So that could be, if you're getting great results, then I would say yes, that is you're probably in a great position, but unfortunately there's just no way for me to know. So Mitchell G says, hello Q, thank you and Top Speed for the amazing contributions you make to golf. We will go down in history as one of the greatest training tools right alongside Hogan's 5 fundamentals. Question is on the elbow when trying to do the move. I don't have the mobility to point my elbow straight down as it flies slightly on the backswing, requiring me to bring it back to my side in the downswing. So your elbow should be moving down to your side in the downswing. Oh, it goes on to say, having timing issues on how to initiate the downswing, elbow first, lot weight shift, or both at the same time. So really that you should be moving forward because you should be having some weight shift actually in the last part of the backswing is when you should be doing it. So as you're getting up here, that's when you should be shifting your weight. So that's happening before the elbow comes in. Mitchell, I've seen your golf swing. I vaguely remember exactly what's going on. Really what you do is you just get your elbow stuck too far behind you, right? So your elbow is really, really tight like this. It's going to be really, really difficult for you to do the move from this position right here. You need to keep this arm more straight. I think we've gone over that in some past office hours, but I would try to keep this arm as straight as you possibly can. Your swing is going to it's going to feel shorter. It's probably going to get a little bit shorter, but what you may lose a little bit of club head speed, but what you'll gain a lot more in ball speed because you're going to go from being able to you're going to go from being like this, right? Having that elbow really, really stuck behind you and really flipping at impact, adding a lot of loft to maybe a little bit shorter swing with the elbow in position to be able to shallow out the club so that you can rotate into impact and get into this kind of position, right? Where you're able to transfer more energy to the golf ball. So I'd be really focusing on trying to keep that right arm more, or it'd be your lefty. So your left arm more straight in the swing. It's not going to be straight, but I'd be trying to keep it more like this. Don't let it, because if you think about it, if I were to throw a ball, right? So if I were to take this ball and if I was going to throw it sidearm toward a target as hard as I could, I would take it back like this, right? And I would whip it like that. I wouldn't put it back behind my body like this, right? I wouldn't go like that, right? The only place I can throw this with any kind of power would be just to spike it right into the ground. I would not be able to be like this and then throw it with any kind of power. So that's what you got. I would do a couple exercises where, grab a ball or simulate like you're throwing something and put your arm, your throwing arm, your dominant arm in a position where you would be to throw it as hard as you could like this, right? Where would you put your arm? You would put it right here. So imagine if I put my arm in that same spot in the golf swing, there it is right there. That's going to allow me to rotate my body and be in this good position. If I'm like this, right, arm is stuck behind me, and this is part of, you talked about in the past, your arm, or you're losing grip, right? You're losing grip with your hand. If you're losing grip, that's because your arm is stuck behind you. You get your arm more like this, you're not going to lose that grip either. So that's really what you need to get happening is focus on getting this arm in par. But it's going to feel short. It's going to feel that way, most likely for you. It's going to feel like, because it is going to be shorter. But what you're going to gain so much more in club head speed, or not club head speed, in ball speed. And eventually, usually you get that speed back. Because once you start getting comfortable with being in this position right here, even though your swing is shorter, once you get here, you feel like you can really rip through a lot more because you know that club's going to be on plane. You know that face is going to be square, and you can just rip through it hard. Whereas when you're back here like this, now I've got to make some sort of compensation. That face is probably going to be wide open. I'm going to have to flip to get it back. You lose a lot of speed because you're manipulating the club as you're coming in. So I'd really focus on that right arm, or not your right arm, your trail arm position, keeping that like you're going to throw a ball. That's what I'd be trying to focus on to get in the right position. The only reason I know what Mitch's swing looks like is he's a swing review students from a while back. All right, so let's keep moving through here. So David B says, any recommendations on mats that can be used inside and outside with improvement? I'm tearing up my yard, taking divots on every shot. Yeah, I think it's called, the one I have is off of Amazon. It's all right. It's like $150, I think. You can tee balls into it. I got it on Amazon. I think it was like $150 when I got it, but prices go up and down. Let me see if I can find the one that I'm thinking of. I think it's this one. So it's $200 now, the one that I have. It's the 48 by 60 all turf mats. That's the one that I have. And it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. I've had it for a couple years. Holds up pretty good. I have it on my garage floor. It's cement floor. It does move around a little bit. It's not super heavy. So it does move around a little bit, which is a little bit annoying. Now, the one Clay has, I'm trying to remember, Pro Turf mats, I think it might be called. I remember. They're a little bit more expensive than the one that I have, but they're heavier. They actually have kind of like a rubber base on them. And let me see. I can't remember. I think it's Pro Turf. Can't remember what it's called, but they're pretty high quality. Man, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, they're going to be in the $500 range. So yeah, depends on how much you want to spend, but that'd be the high end. Those would be the nice ones. I think it's called Pro Turf. But they're a little bit heavier. They're not going to slide around everywhere, at least not in my experience. But the one that I have, it's less expensive. It's in that $200 range, but less than half the price. But works just fine. It doesn't put the green marks on your clubs. The one I have is called All Turf Mats. You can get it on Amazon. I believe it's even free shipping. So check it out. So Peter I says, I'm confused about the notion of spinning out on the downswing versus the modern swing, and everyone stating you need to open your hips to create more speed. Can you clarify the sequence and timing, please? So what basically the way that I would explain it is that you can't really open your hips too much. It's dang near the only way you can open up your okay, let me say it this way. You can't open your hips too much. What happens is that your upper body gets out of sync with your lower body. That's really what ends up happening. So basically, if I'm coming in the downswing, right, and then I get my hips going, but my trail body or my upper body, my elbow kind of gets stuck behind me like this. Well, if I'm like this, I really have to rotate my hips hard to get to impact in a good position. This would be like a Jim Furyk, right? So Jim Furyk, he looks like he gets his elbow stuck as he's coming down, but he rotates like crazy when he comes. He's like in this kind of position. His hips are way open at impact, and his elbow's really far behind him, right? Whereas you look at a Dustin Johnson who opens his hips probably just as much, maybe even a little bit more, and he has his elbow more in front like this, right? So really what spinning out means is really just means that you're getting stuck. You're not really spinning out. It's just that you're not getting your upper body in sync with your lower body. And if you can't get your upper body to match up with how much your hips are opening up, then I would probably try to sequence it a little bit. I'll try to keep your elbow more in front while you're shallowing out the club. So you may be getting your elbow in front, right? But you can't get the club shallow enough with how much you're opening your hips. So you may need to open your hips a little bit less, so that way your club can work from the inside. So that's really what needs to happen is this trail elbow. Most likely you need to be keeping it ahead of the shirt seam, right? So there's a seam. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a seam on my shirt. It goes down from my armpit all the way down my side. Typically, you want that elbow to be a little bit ahead of that as you're coming down. So if you're coming down, right, and your body is opening up and you're getting in this kind of position right here, that's pretty good. That's what you're going to see with most tour players. But if you're coming down and your body is opening up like this, right, you're opening up your body too much, right, that could technically be termed as spinning out because you can't shallow out the club enough. You're not flexible enough, or you can't get enough right side bend to be able to shallow out the club, turn in the doorknob and right side bend to shallow out the club to be able to get in that position. So a lot of it has to do with your flexibility. I would say you're only really spinning out if you're not flexible enough to open your body a lot and get the club to shallow out. Because this is a mistake that I see a lot of people make. They hear, hey, we need to have our hips open at impact. So what they do is they get up here and then they just go like this and they just swing over the top. Well, if you are someone who doesn't get their hips open at impact, usually looks like this at impact, hips not open really at all, and the arms are just swinging in front of the body. If you do that same thing and open your body, then you're just going to swing over the top. So if you open your hips, you now have to swing more out to the right. And it can be difficult not to get stuck when you do that. So that's why we got to get the elbow kind of working in like this. We got to get the shaft flattening out. So that way when we rotate, it's on plane as we're rotating. So the way I would think about it is open your hips as much as you can and swing out to the right as much as you can. So try to get your hips pointed toward third base and try to get your path pointed out toward first base if you're a right-handed golfer. If you put those together, it's most likely going to put you in a pretty good place because your body is going to get opened up a little bit and your path is probably going to be pretty square because in relationship to your body, you've gotten your path to be more out to the right. Because if you imagine, if I have my hips open, then I'm actually swinging around the right side of my body. Whereas before, if I have my hips square and my path was fairly square, then I'm swinging in front of my body, right? So we have to change both of those things to make that happen. So hopefully that makes sense. But that's essentially the move is what you'd want to work on there to get the club shallowing out so that way you can open up your body. Because most people are steep, no hip rotation, throwing the arms in front of the body, flip the square. What you see better ball strikers doing is shallow, open the body, turn the handle down to square, and then they get into that forward shaft length position instead of the flip position. So that's really the move is probably what you want to work on, that and the straight line release. So Patrick C says, hey Q, I notice I'm very tense swinging my driver, just trying to hit hard and as fast as I can. Can you talk about how tense I should be? Any drills? So I just try to take that out at address. You should have no tension at address. You should be very, very light, essentially. As the swing is starting, there's going to be some tension there. You want to feel it in the handle of the club, not in your arms. You want your arms to feel pretty loose, but the hands are going to feel pretty tight, and that's probably where you're feeling a lot of that tension. And you have to feel that tension, especially in your lead hand through impact. Otherwise, if you try to grip the club super loosely, then you're not going to be able to generate as much speed because you're going to be afraid of the club flying out of your hand. So, mostly in these first three fingers of the grip, allow those to, now you don't want to tighten it on purpose, like you want it to tighten naturally. And the way that you do that, you'll do it naturally. You'll be surprised. I can prove it to you. If you hold a club like this, just take your normal club, hold it, or just take any club, hold it out in front of you like this, normal grip. Don't try to, actually, I would try to just hold it very softly. Have a buddy come up and pull on the club. When he pulls on the club, you're naturally going to put more pressure into it to hold on to it. That's the same thing that's happening when you're coming into impact. So you don't need to try to actually put more force in the handle. You will naturally by virtue of trying to swing hard. But that's okay to have that tension there. That's going to happen. I would just try to keep it out of your arms. Try to feel like your arms are loose as you're coming through, but the tension's in your hand, mostly right here in that lead, those first three fingers. But I try to be loose. That doesn't need to be at address. So if you're at address and you're feeling very, very tense and tight, you don't want to feel that way. You want to feel more athletic, like you can move, right? That's what you want to feel like. So if you imagine like a shortstop getting ready for a ground ball, that's what you want to feel like. You want to feel like you're nimble, like you can move around. You're not going to have a lot of tension when you do that. They're not standing there like flexing their muscles when they're waiting for a ground ball. They're there they got a little bend in their knees. They're very athletic. Their feet are kind of happy feet. That's kind of what you want to feel like when you're addressing the ball. If you look at most tour players, they're moving their feet around. Most of them, they're going to be moving their feet around, right? And then they set the club down and then they go. You very rarely, I don't see too many tour players. The only one that really comes to mind is maybe Jason Day, that sits there kind of dead still for any more than a couple seconds and then swings the club. He's about the only one that I know of that does that. And it works for him, obviously. But pretty much every tour player, you're going to see the feet are moving around, right? They're moving around their feet. They're staying tension-free, right? Their arms are kind of hanging. The grip is fairly loose right here. And then they start swinging. As the speed generates, you're going to feel more tension in your hands for sure. Mostly your lead hand as you're coming down into the golf ball. But your arms should feel like they're whipping through. You shouldn't feel like they're pushing through, because if you're feeling like they're pushing through, that means that you're not really using your body and sequencing correctly. So you want to feel like your body is whipping your arms through there through contact. And if you want to work on that, the Top Speed Golf System is a good place to work on that. The straight line release course, all that is good. So John S. says, currently getting best results, feeling club dropping behind and bowing wrist midway down while doing the move. What is your take on bowing wrist midway down? Sounds like that's a feeling that you're having. It's probably not the reality of what's going on. It really only matters how that club gets to impact. So if that's what's working best for you, then go ahead. I mean, that's basically what Webb Simpson does. Webb Simpson brings the club down like this, and then as he's coming down into contact, he gets that club face squaring a little bit better. I think it's a little bit harder to time than you do that. It's not something that I would necessarily recommend or try to teach people to do. But hey, if that's what works best for you, then that's what works best for you. So Gerald Y says, can you offer any tips on how to hit an approach shot where the ground is not level? We're kind of running out of time here, so I'm not going to go through all of it. But if you want to find, we have a vault section that goes over uphill, downhill, ball below the feet, ball above the feet. Go check that out. Click the instruction tab, then click vault categories, then scroll down the vault categories, go to the special shots vault. There'll be all kinds of, there's all kinds of other special shots in there too, but you'll find all the videos that you're looking for there. So Die P says, hi Q, how's the weight shift working from right foot to left foot between irons and driver? It's the same. So in the beginning of the backswing, we want to be loading up right away. That's one mistake that I see a lot of people make, is they really don't load up until they're getting toward the top of the swing. You want to load up right away. Imagine if you were throwing a ball, right? If I were to throw a ball as hard as I could at something, I wouldn't bring my arm back like this, then load up and then throw, right? I would be loading up right away and then getting my weight shift moving forward as my arm's going back. It's the same thing in the golf swing. I want to be loading up right away, and then as I'm getting to the top, I want to get my weight shift to my lead side, and that way I can really use the momentum to swing the club and whip the club through. The best drill to work on that is the sumo step drill. It's in the 20-minute distance fix course. Click the instruction tab, 20-minute distance fix, week 1 sumo step drill. Try it out to get that weight shift working better. So Tracy E says, I am 90-degree club angle when my left arm is parallel to the ground. So like this, I mean, that's fine as long as the angle isn't getting bigger from the top to here. If you're 90 degrees here and 90 degrees here, that's fine. You really just need to work on how that club's releasing. You can sharpen that angle by working on the top speed lag course. Click the house icon. That'll take you to the home page. Scroll down the home page, work through the lag course, getting that angle a little bit sharper if you want to get it sharper. But the main thing is we just don't want this angle getting bigger from the top. If the angle is going like this, it's going to spell trouble. It's going to be difficult to be consistent through contact. If the angle is going like this, it's the same, then you're fine. You may be releasing early, which means you need to work more on the straight line release, not so much on the lag. You don't need to. Not everyone's going to be able to get like in Sergio Garcia type lag. So Rob S says, can you show how the left wrist breaks after releasing and to the follow through? So basically, when you come, what you're going to see with most tour players, and this isn't the same with all, kind of like what we talked about earlier, some roll the wrist more than others. But basically, when you get into the straight line release position, that club face typically is going to be about 45 degrees shut. Square at impact, and then another 45 degrees shut. And then the lead arm typically will take over and roll over, or the trail arm will take over and roll over the lead arm. That's typically how that will go. And then you go here. But not all tour players are like that. You're going to see some, like a Brooks Koepka, that's more like this, right? And then he brings it up like that. So it's not real important how you get into the release position. It's most important how you are right here at impact. That's the most important thing. I think people lose sight of that. That's really the most important thing. How you get here and what happens after that is really, it doesn't really matter that much as long as you're continuing. Now, it matters in the sense that, you can't just get to here and then stop the swing. You need to create your momentum going all the way through into the full finish. But it's not real important how the face orientation right here or right here. It only matters where it is right here. Now, if focusing on having this face more closed right here helps you to get the face closed there, then great. Or if focusing on having that face more open here helps you to get the face more square here, then great. But I would really be trying to focus on impact first. And then if this feeling works better to get, if you're leaving the face open, then it may be good to feel like this is going on. And if you're leaving that face closed, then it may be good to feel like that's going on. So it's hard to say without seeing your swing and seeing what's going on, but be more focused on the impact, not so much after impact. So Christopher W says, how much distance percentage-wise should you take off for range balls? Depends on the range balls. Not all range balls are the same. So really just depends. So first name L says, Q, the rubber band training drill that Clay has shown is amazing. It has about 90% of the problems I've been working on: chicken wing, shoulder tilt, Straight line release, weight shift, trying to find the same type of ribbon, which is stretchable and easy to use. Great training. It's called TheraBand. So if you go to Amazon, search TheraBand, THERA band, BAND, TheraBand. I think you can get them for like $10, something like that. You can get a few of them. Give them to a buddy who's working on the same thing, or you can find them at most stores like a Dick's Sporting Goods or something like that. Stores that sell workout equipment, most likely you'll be able to do that. So Robert K says, "Hey Q, I already typed my question. However, it may not have explained it very well. What I was getting at is if you hold a split-handed grip as a righty and just leave it at shaft parallel to the ground, then try to push the left to release, but the right hand pulls up toward the club, and then you release the right hand so the left fire at the ball. Is this how you hold and release lag?" I mean, a split grip drill is good to help you because it takes away this, right? So that split grip drill is really just good to help you to open up your body, because in order to get this club to the ball, if I'm keeping my arms relatively straight, right, in order to get this club to the golf ball, I have to rotate my body. So that's really what the split grip is for. It's not to necessarily directly to help you to create lag and release it. It's to help you get the sensation of what your body should be doing through impact, to get you the sensation of how your body should be opening up, right? So I'd like to be kind of like this at impact, whereas most people are like this, right? If you take this, because the only way I can do that is by going like that. And I can obviously feel if I flip the club, right, to get to the ball. But if I go like this, it's not completely obvious at full speed. But if I go like this and I go like that, then I know for sure that I flipped it. Whereas it's gonna train you to get more like this as you're getting through impact, right? To get that, and I have trouble not chunking it when I do that. So that's really what that drill is for, to help you with that. As far as getting the sensation to help you to get lag, that's a top speed lag course, and then to release it properly, that's the straight line release course. Those two are two of the most difficult pieces of the Top Speed Golf system. That's why, the straight line release is the last thing. So that's what I'll be trying to get first, is to generate that lag, work through that lag progression in the Top Speed lag course. And once you're able to get some lag, then I would go to the straight line release course and start working through that if your compression line is good. All right, so last question here says, Tom M says, in the stable fluid spine drill 1.5, the video says 1,000 reps, but the description says 3,000. Can you clarify? I mean, it's 1,000 of each form, so it's 3,000 total. So 1,000 of the too far angle away, angle toward, and in between. It's all in between. So it comes out to 3,000. But keep in mind that when we tell you to do 3,000 reps, that's just a recommendation. That's what we found. Gives you that's what we found. It takes people to get it down, to make it second nature. It may be, it may only take you 1,000 reps. It may take you 10,000 reps. That's just what we found. So it's not like a magic number that you're going to, once you've done 3,000 reps, it's going to be ingrained. You kind of have to go about it your own way and decide whether you've got it down or not. Once you get to where you don't have to think about it and you're doing it automatically, and doing anything else feels weird, then I would say it's second nature at that point. But until then, I'd keep putting the reps in to make it that way. So Louis V says, does the PRGR need to be right in line with the ball? Yes. Needs to be, if the ball is right here, it needs to be straight back behind it, in line with the target. So target line extended, PRGR needs to be right there. If it's a couple inches one way or the other, it's not going to make a big difference. But if you have it like 3 feet over here or 3 feet over there, I imagine it's not going to give you the right reading. So thanks everybody for joining me. We're back here tomorrow, 11 a.m. Real quickly, no office hours on Wednesday. Robin will be here Thursday and Friday, and then I'll be back Monday. So Everybody have a good rest of your evening, and I will talk to you next time.